Greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast alongside Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. We are brought to you by our friends over at Relief Factor. Meet Bob, because you could be the next Bob. Bob, 63, spent 40 years as a body man car painter. Obviously, that puts a lot of wear and tear on the old chassis. Bob says after 40 years of that, I could barely walk. Couldn't make it up the stairs. By day 4 or 5, though, I started to feel the change. And after just 8 days on Relief Factor, I was 75% better. I'm comfortable now, and I'm thoroughly impressed. Bob is one of those success stories. In fact, how many have there been? Well, over the years, 1 million people, over 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start from Relief Factor. 70% of them ended up like Bob, seeing great results and then sticking with the product long term. So why don't you see if you don't see a difference in your chronic pain from too much inflammation in your joints in 3 weeks or less, especially because it costs just $20 to find out. That's all the 3-week quick start's going to cost you to see if your quality of life improves. ReliefFactor.com is where you can go to try that 3-week quick start today. Again, head over to ReliefFactor.com. All right, coming up on today's program, at the bottom of the hour, Brent Buchanan, one of President Trump's pollsters during the 2024 campaign, is going to join us. He's got a new book out about the emotional divide in America. Given that we are in a cold civil war, what is the number one thing that drives people to the polls these days, and how could that shape what we're going to see in next year's midterms? We're going to discuss that at the bottom of the hour. Next hour, for fake news or not, there's been a lot of discussion in the wake of Charlie's murder and aftermath about how to message the next generation of young men who could step into some of that void to reach the young men that Charlie was the herald in that battle. We've got some video we want to show you that we kind of think is the exact messaging, or maybe not. Maybe Todd and Aaron were going to decide it's not the exact messaging we're looking for in order to reach the next generation of young men. And then for Pop Culture Tuesday, there's a lot happening with the Netflix, Warner Brothers, Paramount, I guess we'll call it menage a trois, whatever you want to call it. The three of them trying to figure out, which two are going to stay together, the love triangle, and, which one is going to get cast aside here. And I wanted to spend some time talking about it because it's also a metaphor for where we are politically in America. The three forces at play pretty much describe what voting is like all too often in America. So we'll get to that and more coming up on today's show. But before we do, you know how we roll. Let's kick this thing off with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Chips. In a somewhat surprising development, President Trump announced on Truth Social this morning the United States will start to allow the sale of the most cutting-edge processing chips to China. It's a reversal from the administration's previous stance, which put the U.S. at a technological advantage over China in the AI arms race. Trump says, quote, "This policy will support American jobs, strengthen U.S. manufacturing, and benefit American taxpayers." Trump also announced yesterday $12 billion in assistance for American farmers. Trump did an interview with Politico and says our continued partnering with Europe militarily is incumbent on whether or not they continue to be viable as a civilization.
You can imagine some leaders in Europe are a little freaked out by what your posture is, and European.
No, they should be freaked out by what they're doing to their countries. They're destroying their countries.
Well, European Council
and
President.
they're people I like. Look, they're people I like. I get along with them. You know that. But they can't let this happen. And it gets to a point where you can't really correct it. There'll be a point, and it's very close to that point.
And what will that mean?
It will mean that they're no longer going to be strong nations.
Does that mean they won't be allies
Or
anymore?
they'll be, well, it depends, it depends. They'll change their ideology, obviously, because the people coming in have a totally different ideology. But it's going to make them much weaker. They'll be much weaker, and they'll be much different.
And what will that mean for our relationship
look at
with
your mayor
them?
of London. He's a disaster. He's a disaster. He's got a totally different ideology of what he's supposed to have. And he gets elected because so many people have come in and they vote for him now because, it's one of those things. But I hate what's happened to London, and I hate what's happened to Paris. I hate when I see it.
Those comments come as reports filter in that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is once again walking away from the Trump-brokered peace deal for the country's conflict with Russia. Trump was caught on a hot mic at the White House recently complaining about GOP senators slow-rolling his judicial and attorney appointments.
You know, I cannot appoint anybody. I can't appoint anybody.
They're unquoted.
Everybody I've appointed, their time is expired. And then they're in default. And then we'll lose the case.
Speaking of the Senate, Jasmine Crockett is running for Senate in the state of Texas. Here she is recently discussing a new idea for so-called reparations.
One of the things that they propose is black folk not have to pay taxes for a certain amount of time, because then again, that puts money back in your pocket. It's like if you do the no tax thing for people that are already, say, struggling and aren't really paying taxes in the first place, it doesn't really exactly.
They may want those checks like they got during COVID.
Exactly.
In other news, according to a report at the Daily Mail, nearly 30 scientists whose job it was to advise the UK government on public health policy during the height of the COVID scamdemic failed to disclose they were the recipients of nearly £210 million worth of grants underwritten by an organization called the Wellcome Trust that's basically a front for Big Pharma. Last week, Netflix announced they are taking over, buying Warner Brothers Discovery. That's the massive mass media conglomerate who owns oodles of well-known intellectual properties. This week, it's come out Paramount is attempting a hostile takeover of Warner Brothers despite the attempted Netflix deal. Just a reminder of some of the players here. Netflix has deep ties with the Obamas and makes everything they touch gay. Paramount is headed up by the son of Larry Ellison, a billionaire and Trump ally. And finally, every megachurch pastor probably ever. Here's comedian John Crist.
Church fam, what's going on here? Pastor Mike here, thrilled to announce the grand opening of our newest campus downtown. As you can see, thank you so much for your generous donations. We have raised $150 million for this new campus to bring the gospel to the lost. We have our new sermon series coming up next week to open the church campus. It's called Wizard of Oz, Jesus, the Alpha and the Omega. And you're not going to believe what you're going to experience inside of our church on Sunday morning. 875,000 square feet of programmable LED lighting to bring you a church experience just like Paul had envisioned in the New Testament. Thrilled to have you join us. Couple house cleaning things super quick. We are going to have to close the soup kitchen. We just didn't have the manpower to keep that going. All of our focus is kind of into the Sunday morning experience and the homeless shelter that we used to have. We just don't have the room for it anymore. But we are thrilled. We're so thrilled to have you join us on Sunday morning. Can't wait to see you there, 9 and 11.
For those of you listening, Crist does that bit in front of the Las Vegas Sphere, and that's what happened while we were away.
That, when I saw that bit yesterday, man, cut me deep, Shrek. What's the Shrek line you like? Only a true friend, right? I mean, yeah. that hurt my heart because it was right on the money. Now, it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, our church we outgrew our building to the point it was a fire hazard every Sunday. We just moved into a new facility, and we actually expanded our operation to the bread pantry and the food for the homeless programs here in the city of Des Moines. We're like taking several pallets over there a week. So it doesn't have to be that way, right? Again, megachurch is a mentality. It is not a population. As I pointed out before, Calvin, Spurgeon, two of the greatest minds in the history of Protestantism. Spurgeon may be the greatest English-speaking preacher in any vestige of Christianity who's ever lived. And they both preached in what we would call today megachurches. Okay? Your church claims a lineage that goes back to St. Peter. His very first sermon was preached in front of thousands. That's the dawn of the church at Pentecost. That would be, by today's standards, a megachurch, right? So it's not a population, it's a mentality. And John perfectly captured the mentality of the American megachurch in that bit right there. Yikes. All right, let's get to a few things in Aaron's montage. And let's start with what I think will take the least amount of time for me to address to the most. Trump complaining about obstructionist senators. We were discussing this yesterday with John Curtis out of Utah, right? Mm-hmm. Just, I mean, anxious, couldn't wait to get on CNN and say, hey, every day we should get up and process what's the best thing we can do for foreigners in America every single day. And I asked, how many of these guys did we primary or even attempt to? So this morning I went and looked. You want your heart to hurt more?
I'm pretty sure I know what's coming on this one.
I mean, listen, man. What I'm about to share with you is some Vanta Black. All right. So since Trump became rightful king of the GOP, I mean, the first time he did it, he beat 23 other campaign rivals. I think if you go 1 on 23 and beat 1 on 23, you earn the right to be king. Just, that's a dude code thing, right? I mean, you're king of the ring. You get into a battle royal, it's you on your own versus 23 guys, and you're the one that walks out of there. You're king of the ring, right?
That's fair.
Okay. You take a bullet to the face, right? And stand up and scream, fight, 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 you know, with your ear shot off. Dude code again probably says, yeah, all right. That's the rightful king. He earned his position, right? Okay,
Sure.
so Trump is the rightful king of the GOP. He has earned it. However, since Trump became rightful king of the GOP, his first primary cycle would have been 2018. Since 2018, when the most coveted possession in the Republican Party was a Trump endorsement. I mean, listen, let me just give you guys some inside baseball. Just, you know, working behind the scenes on my own state governor's race and primary. Let me just tell you what it's like. I'll just tell you what it's like. And this is true everywhere because I have friends everywhere and we all are having the same conversations. A lot of the major right-wing groups that you're used to seeing take part in primary cycles are largely sitting out. And the reason why is because the only thing that matters to the Republican primary voter is who Donald Trump endorses. Because he's king. He's the rightful king. So if he endorses that person, their previous record is irrelevant. They're the nominee. And so a lot of these conservative groups don't want to be on the wrong side of a Trump endorsement, spend months working to help frame a campaign with a candidate, only to then have Trump come in, endorse against them, and now they're on the wrong side of the White House. And in politics, that's not where you want to be. You typically in politics don't want to be on the wrong side of the king. Usually doesn't work out for you. We have a few historic stories where opposing kings do work out. We've made movies about those, you know. But by and large, guys, what's the historical batting average of being on the wrong side of a king? Just by and large, what's that BA?
It's pretty rough.
Below the Mendoza line, probably, Todd. So you're not. Yeah, I mean you're probably hitting point to 0.40 maybe going against kings. That's just typically how it works.
That's in that ballpark.
Yeah. So nobody. Pardon me. Nobody wants to go against the king. So a lot of groups. This is why a lot of your primaries around the country seem stillborn a lot of times, and you get months into the race, and you're like, is there even a primary happening? Is anybody even? I mean, I know there's candidates running. What is going on? Right? This is why I'm telling you why. I'm just telling you why. Okay. And the contact levels that I have, all the way to the Trump White House, all the way down to, my own state legislature, and then all around the country are pretty extensive. This is happening everywhere. It's a frozen process waiting to see who Trump will endorse. And so everybody's trying to gauge, is that the Trump loyalist? Or in our governor's race, we don't necessarily have someone in the race who has been known throughout their entire career as a Trump loyalist. And so all of the governor's candidates are trying to figure out how to frame themselves as a Trump loyalist to get that endorsement, because they all know no matter how much money I raise, no matter who else supports me, right? If I have the Trump endorsement, I'm going to be the nominee. Pardon me. And if I don't, everything I just did was for absolutely nothing until that point in time when I find out I don't. The primary is over. We're running primaries of one all over the country. And that you guys in the GOP primary electorate are just waiting to see who Trump endorses, and you vote for that person every single time. Now, did I complain about this at all in the last few minutes? Did I air any complaints or criticisms of that process?
No.
No, because you know why? I don't have any. Even privately, when you've heard me working the process behind the scenes, have you heard me complain or criticize the process that this is what it is? Have you even heard me kvetch about it on a routine basis and bitch and moan about it all the time?
Well, that's been a process that we've been working through since 2015 and coming down the elevator. So,
but
it's not a new thing.
But I have assumed that this is the process, and from the minute this governor's process began, have I not been operating with this is the paradigm, and we just have to figure out how to succeed within it, right?
Absolutely.
And listen, I'm not sure it's different. I don't think it's probably worse than the previous paradigm we had, which is Fox News just picked all our nominees. All right. So, so it's just, it is what it is. Okay. Republican incumbent U.S. senators in their primaries since 2018 are 56-0. 56-0. 56-0. Not counting retirements. Republican incumbent U.S. Senate candidates since 2018 are 56-0. Everything Trump said about the Senate GOP in that clip is gospel, 100% correct. But someone needs to say, Mr. President, how many of those guys and gals did you endorse or refuse to endorse against so they went unchallenged? Now, a lot of people know what I'm saying, just don't want to say it because it hurts your access to say things like that. I don't have an access-based show. And I would refuse one if offered, and it has been in the past, and my answer has always been no. No. I want to tell you what I really think show, and that's what I got into this business to do. Which is probably why I'll never make 7 digits, but I make a nice 6-digit living getting to tell you what I really think, and I sleep much better at night, knowing I didn't hop on a plane and go to Qatar and come back and have a completely different take on life in general. I'm not a homosexual who took money to go to Qatar and then a place where I could be imprisoned for up to 7 years for filleting another man, literally. And then post all kinds of things on my social media profile to tell you what a great place Qatar is because they paid me enough. Just asking questions. That's all we have to
season.
We can literally just say, make up whatever we want nowadays. As long as we just say we're just asking questions, it's okay. Those are the rules, right?
It appears so.
I don't make the rules. I'm just playing by them. All right. Not saying it happened, it did, but I'm not saying it did. I'm just, allegedly, but it happened. So I don't do an access-based show. I tell you what I think show, and we'll find out if I can do it in a way that enough of you want to listen that I can continue to make a living doing this. And when I can't, I won't. But I won't do it another way. I'm too damn stubborn now, and I'm old. So the reality is everything the president said there is correct. But he's endorsed many of these fools. Since 2018, since Trump took over as rightful king of the GOP, a kingship he earned, he beat 23 men. You earned it. Took a bullet to the face. He earned it. But since then, incumbent Republican U.S. senators are 56-0 in their primaries. Do you guys think there's 56 incumbent Republicans that were all perfectly deserving of winning their primaries and getting reelected?
There weren't 6.
No. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it. Here we are. Okay. Some of it is a stalling and throttling and obstructing of our own devising. He'd be better off, honestly, if he just stopped endorsing any of them. If we can't get him to endorse more of our grassroots candidates because he doesn't think they can win, and I understand that too. I'm not naive. I've worked this process many times. You know how many people email me constantly asking me for their support if they run? I don't know who they are. No one knows who they are. There's no chance they could get elected, all right? So I don't have a problem whatsoever with the president not wanting to waste money on some 2% candidate who can't win because I understand the way politics works. It needs to look like he's got maximum capital for leverage, right? I understand that, okay?
Sure.
But then what would be better than what he has done? Which is endorsing a bunch of these fools, it's just not endorsed at all. And just said, hey, we'll let the primaries play themselves out. My job's to work with the majority the Republican primary voter gives me. Because all he did was just endorse a bunch of Republican U.S. senators that are now throttling his own administration. Number 2, Ukraine. This will be the 10,000th time I will say this. I suspect, sadly, I'll have to say it a few more. Walk away. Walk away. Just walk away. At this point, the only comment that should come from the president on Ukraine is the following. I did what I could to end this fake war. But the European Union, who is trying to convince me that that the new Soviet Union was going to form if Putin got his way here, they still keep buying his Russian oil to enrich his war machine. Zelensky is a documented corruptocrat. I'm sorry, we've already wasted enough time and treasure on this as it is. Not another American penny or thought on this. You guys figure this out. We're trying to win the battle for the soul of our own country. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That's it, and we're done. And just walk away. Walk away. All the focus on Israel this year, we've given Ukraine 115% more money than we gave Israel this year. And they were both actively fighting wars. And we gave Ukraine 115% more money than we gave Israel. Now, you know my position. Nobody gets a damn thing, and can I get a witness on that?
Sure.
No one seconded?
Yep.
No one gets a damn thing, okay? But if we're going to do a pecking order of who gets something, my goodness, Ukraine gets 115% more money than Israel does? Morally explain that. I've got a documented common enemy with Israel, at least. Who the hell's life changes whether or not Putin controls the Crimea or not? Let me guess what'll happen. EU will just buy more. We'll have to now just buy even more Russian oil than they're already currently buying, right? Does anything else happen?
No.
Probably not. Iran has a stable nuclear program. A lot of things could possibly change there, right? Which is why the Saudis and the Jordanians and the Egyptians were helping us shoot down Iranian drones this year, because they think that too. I mean, again, nobody gets a damn thing if Steve Deace is potentate. I'm Michael Corleone. My offer is nothing. That's my offer. My offer is nothing. Thank you. Thank you for your attention to this matter. My offer is nothing. But if we're going to give something to somebody, what the hell have we gotten out of this Ukraine thing at all? Nothing. Less than nothing. So walk away. There's nothing here. Zelensky throwing out talking points when his own chief of staff is getting busted for corruption. He hasn't had an election in like 4 years. Like he's got some kind of moral high ground. Call Bono and tell U2 to do some more catacomb concerts over there and have a nice life. Which brings me now, though, to the president at his best. And it's what Aaron's montage began with. For all the various frustrations I just expressed, how has this guy become the rightful king of the GOP? How did it happen? Because he was willing to use his bully pulpit and platform to say things like what he says to that reporter about what's happening to the EU. They let a bunch of people in that don't share their values and ideology, and they've been conquered. And now they're voting for people that don't share their ideology and values. They're being replaced. Their way of life is being replaced. Our ideologies are different. Why would we align with that? Can you think of a national or even an aspiring national Republican figure not named Ron DeSantis that if they were given the exact platform Trump has been given the last decade would say things like that on the world stage with a bully pulpit? Because I can't. Can you, Aaron? I cannot think of one.
No.
Take DeSantis, Trump, or the field. Who are you betting? I don't even think that bet's on the board. You couldn't go to a book in America that would put that bet on the board. Because it'd be like minus 47,000 the field would be. No one would bet that. Which begs a question that I have. And I'm wondering if you guys can answer this for me. Tell me, what mutual threat would emerge? Well, given the age of disclosure that we are allegedly in, let me specify that all the more. Okay. What terrestrial threat could possibly emerge that would have us say, yes, by all means, we pledge our lives, fortunes, sacred honors, and sons and daughters on the battlefields of Europe because of our common values to stand with you in defeat? Who would that be? Who would that be? For example, using again your favorite term of fourth quarter 2025, Todd, limiting principle, right? Mm-hmm. No limiting principles are the governments in Brussels. Is it Berlin or Frankfurt is the capital of Germany? I can't remember. London, okay? Would they be any different than China's? If there were no limiting principles at all that they inherited from the cultures by which they came, okay? If those limiting principles were, that they're eroding as we speak in real time, right? But if those limiting principles were not there at all, wouldn't they just be China?
Sure.
If Zelensky could, wouldn't he just be Putin?
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
yes.
If Zelensky was sitting on the largest nuclear arsenal, wouldn't he just be Putin?
Yes.
Okay, so really we're just talking about two guys or the same guy. One guy just says mine's bigger than the other guy, and the other guy can't handle that. And so that's why we've got a war that's still going on that he knows he can't win, but we're just going to keep killing people anyway, right?
China's, quite frankly, in many ways a better deal because of the economics of the matter.
True. They're already in a position where they can just pay their people slave wages, so you can still get cheap goods there. Well, in Europe, you get neither one of those.
We're at Europe. The Europe's been, coasting on our coattails for how long?
So pick again some of our enemies. Maybe Iran, maybe Iran, because again, even most of the Muslim world hates Iran, right? So maybe Iran, but let's say there was a Cold War between the U.S. and Iran. Does anybody here think the European Union wouldn't buy Iran's oil if it gave them cheaper fuel to run their scams? See what I'm saying? So then tell me, what would it be? What threat that we can visualize as the world sits today that would emerge, that there's enough common values that we would say it is worth pledging our lives, fortunes, and sacred honors to these European countries, particularly the EU countries. Maybe we could argue about some of the old Eastern Bloc countries, Hungary and a few others that are still kind of, trying to cling to traditional Western views. All right, but the EU, let's make it specific. The EU specifically. What would be the war that you would think, Aaron, what would be the war that you would think in the next 20 years would be worth Ben fighting for and maybe giving his life for? What war would that be? Who would that enemy be?
Nobody that we're certainly talking about at the moment.
I mean, let me make it even more personal because my son's of fighting age right now. If China attacks Western Europe tomorrow, Noah comes to me and says, what do you think I ought to do? Not a damn thing would be my answer. Nothing. In fact, here's why. China's not going to attack the EU tomorrow because they're already pretty closely aligned. It would be stupid for China to attack the EU tomorrow. They're moving their way. Just hang out. Wait.
You speak, obviously, for the ethos of the Blaze listeners to the show. The problem comes, though, are you speaking for the majority of the leadership of the Republican Party?
Oh, of course not.
Well, see that
again, the majority leadership of the Republican Party is John Curtis,
and that's why your Ukraine analysis is so interesting. The same applies to that.
Of course it does.
Remember,
which is why I put the two issues back to back.
Remember how quickly Ditch came running for cover?
This is the most important issue in the world today.
That place.
Then he had another stroke. Yes.
Because the too much money argument that I always joke about regarding college football, well, it's not just a college football thing. The too much money thing is the answer to your question on whether or not somebody will rally to such a cause. I think obviously it's asked and answered when it comes to you, our audience, the Blaze, etc. But yikes, there's plenty on the right I think we have reason to be worried about.
Aaron, can you foresee the threat that would be worth a World War I, World War II level effort on the battlefields of Europe?
No.
What about those 56 incumbents, though, that you just got done talking about?
Oh, they would all say that's the only reason I ran. Yeah.
There we are.
Which calls into, if that's true, then you have to ask, why are we still even having NATO then? What's the point of then even having that then, if that's the case? That's just another bureaucracy, right?
Yeah.
I said yesterday it was 42%. It's a lot lower than that. There's about 30% of Americans that still believe in Western civilization. There's about 30% of Americans, I would say, are just hardcore Marxists. And then the other 40% are just normies that will just vote for whoever, gives them the prosperity and security that they are seeking in this life.
That's a dying nation right there.
Yes, but it's also all that's left of Western civilization. That's all that's left. What I just articulated is all that is left. All right? About 30% of the electorate in this country is literally all that's left. And so if that is the case, the last thing our sons and daughters ought to be doing is dying for Europe.
You're here.
I mean, in fact, at this point, short of we get up tomorrow and like Red Dawn is real life. All right. And Putin's dropping paratroopers with the Chi-Coms. I'm not sure what conflict would emerge that would be worth any kind of massive military buildup of our own men and women on a foreign soil to risk their lives for. Do you?
Nope.
More in a moment. Hey, back here on the Steve Deace Show, and we are powered by our friends over at ChristianCollegeGuide.com. Hey, A college can be a major investment, and if you're making the extra investment of a Christian college, then who's got time to dig through all those websites? And you just can't trust that just because it's called a Christian university, it actually is. That can just be, frankly, branding or coasting on fumes of elder boards old. That's why you're looking for the ChristianCollegeGuide.com. It's a free, easy-to-use resource that does that work for you. It's an online directory of over 250 Christian colleges and universities. It's your one-stop shop. It does all the basics now that any other university you want to know about, acceptance rates, tuition cost, academic majors. But listen, you're sending your kid to a Christian college because you don't want to spend six figures turning them into a gay race communist. So what you really want to know is the campus policies, the spiritual life, the discipleship, spiritual formation commitments, faith commitments, right? It goes through all of that info to help you find a Christian college that you can trust. All right. So if you want the definitive guide to Christian higher education, it's completely free. All right. So create a free user profile. Get started today at ChristianCollegeGuide.com. Again, that's ChristianCollegeGuide.com. New book out called America's Emotional Divide, Navigating the Powerful Decision-Making Forces Impacting Politics, Policies, and Personal Choices. Buddy of mine, Brent Buchanan, pollster for Trump during the 2024 election from Cygnal Polling, is the author. And it's good to have you back on the show, my friend. How are you? Merry Christmas to you.
Hey, Steve, Merry Christmas and congrats to your team. I see you proudly wearing them.
Yeah, I didn't intentionally wear this to troll you for what we did to you all, because Brent's an Auburn guy, for those that don't know. What we did to y'all in that really cockamamie event, tournament, whatever that was in Vegas, with like no bracket and no rules in terms of who advanced. But nevertheless, since it worked out that way, I'll own it. So no offense, but I'll own it. All right. So let's start with a big question. What's the driving impulse for the decisions that people are making today? Why the title America's Emotional Divide?
Well, I can't tell you how many polls that I did, implemented for folks what the polls said to do, and then nothing changed. And it got me frustrated. So I began looking at academic research on what actually drives human behavior, specifically when it relates to voting. Mm-hmm. And the question goes back to what drives human behavior, period. It doesn't matter if somebody's voting, buying a car, or getting married. It is all this biological fact that our brains were built to conserve energy, and the least caloric way that we can take in, process information, and make decisions is emotionally, through our subconscious, through the inside part of our brain, not through the prefrontal cortex. And I know that your listeners probably didn't plan to come into a brain discussion here, but it makes a lot of sense of biologically we were built for survival, and everything we do is based around survival. And even though we're not being chased by wild animals or going without food for days or weeks on end, as the whole population used to do a long time ago, those innate senses and that biology is still with us. So how we make decisions is the same way that it was thousands of years ago. I mean, God created us for a reason, with a purpose, and it was to survive, and it was to procreate and to spread his gospel, and all of those are biologically built into us. And I think they're way often ignored in taking into account what role emotions and that emotional processing plays in why things happen, why people do what they do.
I thought the most effective message that our side ran the entire cycle last year was the Trump ad, Kamala Harris is for they, them. Trump is for you. I thought that was the best message, the best ad we ran the whole cycle. First of all, your thoughts on my assessment there, if you agree, disagree, or would maybe slightly beg to differ.
Yeah, well, that's how I opened the first chapter, is making that exact same statement that you made. And it goes to a couple factors. One is that the most extreme candidate tends to lose. Then why does the most extreme candidate tend to lose? Because they're viewed as most threatening to somebody's safety, security, or belief system. Mm-hmm. So that was a wonderful way to cast Kamala Harris as way more extreme of the two candidates running for president. Secondarily, it plays into in-group, out-group factors that also goes back to our survival instincts, where if somebody is on the out group, they're your enemy. If they believe something that could harm you, if they are talking about things that would be detrimental to you, all of those things play into this in-group, out-group aspect where we're looking to protect and survive ourselves. So with a lot of young men, a lot of non-white voters, they saw that message and they didn't say, I'm making my decision on this election based on the transgender issue. But that issue became a proxy for extremity. That is what won Donald Trump the election.
Then that brings me to my follow-up question with that as the setup. You're describing, biological, emotional imperatives, right? Hardwiring of us as a species by our creator. But how in your first answer, but how much of that is embellished, highlighted, ignited, exacerbated because we are in what amounts to a cold civil war. Now, we have two diametrically opposite cultures here attempting, it's almost an American Yugoslavia at this point. We have diametrically different cultures here that are attempting to share the same landmass. And really, except for deep South states well into the post-World War II era of the civil rights battles, you'd really have to go to pre-Civil War, where literally life in Alabama was just way different than life in Massachusetts, from agrarian to industrial to slave to free, right? And we saw how that ended up being the case. It's hard for two to walk arm in arm if they don't see eye to eye. And so how much does that inflame what you're describing all the more, that life in California and New York could not be any different, say, than life in Florida is?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I think it's what drives this emotional divide that we see in our country right now. And the best way that I think of explaining this between at least the left and the right is that the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the very base is safety and security, and then shelter, and all the way at the top is self-actualization. And if you are well-to-do, if you have all your needs met and then some, all those folks are shifting left because they don't have to worry about the basic needs of life. And all the people who are lower down on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs are much more likely to be shifting right currently because they see that as a way to renew what has been lost, to right what has been wronged. But to your point on the inflamed piece, I cover in the book several chapters of what I think drove that in this particular election. The first being that diploma divide that I'm describing, where more higher educated folks, more well-to-do, have shifted left, even though they may have been country club Republicans back in the day, and working class people have shifted right. So that's one of the factors. The other is that you have a massive problem with institutional distrust, where government, media, education, other institutions that were set up, many of them post-World War II, no longer serve the majority of Americans. And not only do they not serve them, many of them actually feel threatened by those institutions. That is going to cause a certain emotional, visceral reaction. And then the third is media fragmentation. And I don't even know how long ago it was, but in my lifetime, there was still just a few national broadcast channels, several national papers in your local paper. That was information. CNN was revolutionary, but it was in and of itself a single entity in what is now a massive category. So this media fragmentation is not just the mainstream media being fragmented. It is social media, which I don't think is social anymore. I think we should just call it online video distribution platforms, where algorithms feed you exactly what you want to see and hear to reinforce that which you already believe. And nobody has the same worldview anymore. Even two people who live in the same household and have all the same or similar interests are going to have two totally different media, video content, information narrative. So you stack up all those three factors, and I think that's a lot of what led to this emotional explosion that created the 2024 presidential election that fell in Donald Trump's favor, that he really crafted to his favor too. One of the other pieces of media fragmentation has been these long form video podcasts where somebody can talk for hours and hours, and Donald Trump is really good at that. And I think it humanized him in a way that we're actually seeing right now in the White House when when he does press gaggles, he's going from having been interviewed during the campaign to now being interrogated, and he doesn't control the narrative. And if you look at polling, we just came out of the field yesterday within our monthly national survey, people who get their news from the sources that won Donald Trump the election have shifted the furthest away from him because he's no longer having conversations where they are.
All right, let's shift this then to next year. And, you know, we saw this on the other side in the Obama years where we annihilated them in both midterms. But when the power of his personality was on the ballot, we could not defeat him. And so voters, midterm voters who put all the blame on him for the sluggish rebound from the 2008 collapse would then turn right around in the 2012 re-election exit polling and say, well, it's still Bush's fault. All right, that the power of his personality exceeded the power of the Democrat brand as a whole. And so when he wasn't on the ballot, they got the worst of both worlds. They got maximum blowback from us, okay, to his policies, but they didn't get the benefit of him being on the ballot to drive out their base at the way he could when he was the candidate. We've seen the opposite of this in the Trump years, all right, where we are underperforming in midterms. All right. But because we get the other thing. We get the maximum blowback from their side, max lit energy, got to stop Trump, fascist, Nazi, yada, yada, yada. But without him on the ballot, he's so far surpassed the appeal of the Republican Party brand that most of Republican candidates just cannot even come close to generating a turnout from our base the way that he can, which also factors in, I think, to why we underperform in all these midterm special elections, off-year elections the last couple of years now. All right. So, number one, do you agree with that comparison? And then number two, then, what's the antidote? I saw Susie Wiles say yesterday that she's going to put Trump on the stump next year like he is on the ballot, like it is a national race. We're going to try to nationalize congressional races. How possible is that? And is the answer to that question, hey, ask me in September what the affordability index is, and I'll give you an answer of how possible that is.
Yeah, well, it's a political eternity between now and the midterms. But your question makes the assumption that the party bases are the same in the Obama years that they were today. Mm-hmm. What I saw when I started doing research for Donald Trump in 2015 was the same people who put him in the White House somewhat then, but way more in 2024, non-white, younger, working class voters that used to be the core foundation of the Democratic coalition are now our voters. The people who used to be our core voters, country club, silk stocking Republicans, are now Democratic voters. So nothing has changed in who is turning out in the midterms. What has changed is who those people vote for now in the midterms. So the people that when I started doing politics were the folks we would go and not even really have to make any effort to turn out in an election are now the exact same people Democrats don't have to go turn out an election. And we have inherited their base. They've inherited our base. This diploma divide has completely shifted from what it was several decades ago. And so I think that's one of the number one factors as to why we used to dominate midterms and now why we get wiped out in midterms is because we've swapped our voter bases. Secondarily, on what this means for Donald Trump is that he has to go back to what worked for him and what reached these voters. There's a reason that these lower propensity, now Republican or at least Trump voters that hopefully we can turn into Republican voters don't turn out is because they are actively avoiding the news. Yep. They're living day to day, intentionally not consuming political information. And the magic of Donald Trump's campaign is that he went into their phones, onto their laptops, into their YouTube streaming on their television when they were not looking to have a conversation about politics, and they found themselves watching it. So it's that and rallies and other things that work in a presidential race that they're going to have to try to replicate. I don't know if that is going to work in the same way because they don't get to go actually pull the lever for Donald Trump in 2026.
Yeah, see, that's what I was going to ask you.
Put the pieces together.
Yeah, before we run out of time, I wanted to ask you that. Trump, listen, might be the greatest salesman in American history. Can he sell our voters on voting for the same Republicans that he's rightly complaining about right now for stalling his agenda in the U.S. Senate, right? How do you do that and then turn right around and say, but I need these guys or I'm going to get impeached next year, right? I mean, can Trump sell that?
I think that's why our Republican primaries matter so much in getting the right folks to run, getting the right folks funded, and getting the right teams around these people so that they can win. Because I probably can't use these terms, but I was taught in the South, you can't turn chicken fill in the blank into chicken salad.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of times what Republicans get to deal with in general elections is they want a chicken salad and they actually have the other as their candidate.
Folks, you want to check out this book with a foreword, by the way, from our very own Glenn Beck, America's Emotional Divide, Navigating the Powerful Decision-Making Forces Impacting Politics, Policies, and Personal Choices, from Trump 2024 pollster Brent Buchanan. I've gotten to know Brent this year. He's made me smarter. So I appreciate that, brother. Good to see you again. Merry Christmas, all right?
Likewise. Merry Christmas. Thanks, Steve.
You bet. All right, guys, what do you think?
Oh, there's so much there to unpack, but the active avoiding of politics right there. And don't think of that as high and mighty or they're above the fray. What he was talking about, what social media has become, it's not social. It's the matrix.
Yep.
They want to plug in, and it's all self-medication. It's a pleasure center. And if that's become the bottom line of a society, hacking through that you have to have the larger-than-life personality of Donald Trump. And remember, they didn't like him for his politics. They liked him because he was the host of a game show on TV. Our whole paradigm is not designed to appeal to that kind of voter on a regular basis.
Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be charged, whereas mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms which they are accustomed.
Correct.
It's the Declaration of Independence. As much as I would love to have an idealistic outlook on our country, our fellow countrymen, our citizens, that we could put aside all of these factors that we are predisposed to at a psychological level. It's just the framers of the Declaration understood human nature just the same as we are. The difference, as we've often said on this show, is that the framers of the Constitution, the writers of the founding fathers, realized that we were not special, and they devised a government that reflected that. For now, going on a second generation, however, I think the zeitgeist of the country and the spans generations is that we're the people we've been waiting for. So we're predisposed to all of these differing blowings of the wind, and that's kind of why we're in this predicament to begin with. Nevertheless, great insight there from Brent Buchanan. Can't wait to see more of the book.
Next hour, fake news or not, Pop Culture Tuesday coming your way. Stay tuned. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast with Todd Erzen and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox, which you can take advantage of by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Also, don't forget our new YouTube channel, at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, if you're a podcast listener and you wouldn't mind, let us know that you love the show. Let others know you love the show by leaving us a 5-star review. Tens of thousands of you have done this for us. Thank you for each and every single one. Even more of you have hit the subscribe or on Apple iTunes follow button to make sure that every time we do a new show, it's right there in your feed every single time. Thanks to each and every one of you for those as well, because without you, we're not doing this show. So thank you guys very much for that. And thanks to our friends over at Kexi. Circle December 15th. All right, that's 6 days from today. That's your deadline for Christmas shipping to take advantage of Kexi with the gift that will not be regifted and the gift that you're going to want to make sure you don't buy and then hand over to somebody. You won't be able to trust yourself. You want to just ship it directly to them. That's too much temptation for one person to handle, trust me. Kexi cookies are absolutely fantastic. Ingredients you can pronounce. They taste like homemade. And though I cannot vouch for the Christmas box because they still haven't sent me mine yet, hint, 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 I can vouch for all the other boxes. They were terrific. In this year's Christmas box, salted caramel, peppermint fudge, the super popular cinnamon roll cookie, and more. And you can get 15% off with Deace 15. Deace 15 is your promo code for 15% off at Kexi.com, Kexi, Kexi.com. And remember, December 15th is the cutoff to guarantee shipping by Christmas if you want to gift it. Kexi.com, Kexi, Kexi.com. Use the code Deace15 for 15% off. Well, of course, we are in the midst of the Christmas season. And here on the Steve Deace Show, before we continue on with today's program, we think that we should all take time to stop, pause, and appreciate what this time of the year means. And the most important thing that we can remember here during this Christmas and Advent season, never forget, we're just asking questions. Every generation has its signature voices, whose singular name echoes throughout every holiday season. Bing, Sinatra, Elvis, Mariah, and now, Candace.
Dashing to the bank, thanks to my engagement ring. I'm a grifting tool, laughing at you fools. Ha ha ha!
That's right, it's Candace, as you've never heard her before, bringing you the fullness of joy this Christmas with her trailblazing flair and brutal honesty. Nothing says, trust me, bro, this time of year quite like a Candace Christmas.
That's Candace, you gave me your clicks, but the very next day I sold out anyway. This year, for even more fame, I'll try to frame Josh Hammer. It's the most profitable time of the year. There'll be podcasts for hosting, former friends for roasting, and plenty of gullibles to deceive. There'll be scary Jew stories, tall tales to boost my glory from text, fake from long, long ago. Qatar baby, slip Alexis under the tree for me. I've been an awfully good girl, Qatar baby, and rushed that wire transfer tonight. Shapiro got run over by yours truly. I can't believe that dumb Israeli ever hired me. You could say there's no such thing as blasphemy, but I can't even turn Christ King into idolatry.
But don't worry, it's not all fun and frivolity. A Candace Christmas is also here to honor the real reason for the season.
Listeners, did you know that I'm playing you and your double-digit IQ? Listeners, did you know there's nothing I won't say and nobody I won't betray? Silent night, no Jews inside. I'll be calm when the Zionists are gone.
But that's not all. This collection has so much more to offer. Like, baby, there's Jews outside. Rudolph, my favorite SS agent. You're beginning to look a lot like incels. Little Groiper boy. Oh, little town of Tehran. Joy to the bots. I saw Macron kissing, whatever the hell that was. The Jews are trying to kill me again, send money. What time zone is this? And happy Christmas, the grift is never over, and more. I just think the most important thing we could do this Christmas, just asking questions. That's all we're doing. We're just asking questions. Todd, I need to know, because you've not seen or heard any of that yet.
No.
You just had this sprung on you along with the audience, and I've got to say, I was tearing up. I was moved. Genuinely moved by the passion and the power of a Candace Christmas. Todd, your thoughts?
You have many lanes in this life of yours, professionally and otherwise, but your greatest lane may be this Weird Al Yankovic 2.0 kind of thing that you've found these last couple of years. You did the COVID Christmas, now this one. I dare you to do better. I think America out there,
and we did it for America. I think that's very clear. That shines through. We did this, America. We did this for you. We did it for you.
If America is paying attention, and that's a really big if, but tomorrow we should be looking at a live shot of Candace listening to this because the conversation merits that. It's like this is a moment that the conscience is seared by. And that's become very fashionable today, to look to all manner of watching I can't stand it, watching people watch things and react to them.
Yeah.
But this is unavoidable. This is a comet coming into our collective consciousnesses, I think. And I don't know how Candace doesn't.
Anybody named Candace.
Anybody named Candace. I don't know who you're referring. There's lots of Candaces out there.
I don't know how she avoids dealing with this.
Candace.
Anybody named Candace. I think right now you're on the clock.
Yes, this is a challenge.
If your name is Candace, you're on the clock, I think.
This is a challenge that must be answered.
I agree. I mean, and again, nothing. Remember here, we're just asking questions. That's all we're doing. There's no harm in just asking questions. I've been reliably informed this holiday season that there's just no harm in it whatsoever. We should question everything. So I don't see any reason why Tolerance Boulevard and Question Everything both have to be, Question Everything Avenue both have to be one-way streets, right? I mean, Question Everything Avenue is our street. Tolerance Boulevard's the other side street. So Question Everything Avenue is our street. So then we should go ahead and allow that traffic to move both ways, right?
In the history,
you can even question which Candace this is even about because we don't even tell you. It could be any Candace, literally any Candace on planet Earth, or no Candaces for that matter.
In the history of I see you and I raise you, hold my beer, this is perhaps the greatest moment in recorded history.
Wow. So what you're saying is, you're glad your name's not Candace. That's
this is what I'm saying. I mean, this is one of the greatest return volleys of all time.
Thank you. I have to tell you, I believe that's the 17th time I've listened to that. Since Aaron finished it yesterday. I mean, it's.
Did both you and Anna get $7,000, or did you have to split that?
We split it. Yeah, of course. I wanted to live down to the Candace stereotype of Jews. So I lied to Anna about how much money Israel gave us so I could keep more for myself in the true shyster fashion. Isn't that's how it works, correct? Did I do that right? Is that how it works?
That math probably checks out.
All right, so don't tell Anna it was 7,000. She thinks it was 700. So she was ecstatic when I split that with her 50-50,
I'm still mad that my contribution to this, what time zone is this, didn't make the cut for the promo. I mean, come on. What time zone is this that I see? Is it Utah or UTC? That's a banger.
That is a banger. On second thought, we should have included that. You should have banged the table for that one. What time zone is this? Is it UTC? Oh my gosh.
That happened.
Wow. It did. It did.
Any Candace could have said that, by the way.
And include, I mean, listen, how many Candaces don't know their time zones? Not to mention, I mean, how many Todds, Aarons, and Steves? I mean, the Utah time zone has, if we're being honest, it's been known to trip up a lot of, relatively smart people over the years, guys. I mean, how many times, Todd, just in the last week have you messed up the Utah time zone, right? And just completely had to reconfigure everything you were about to write or say on the air.
Yeah.
I mean, let he who has not recognized the accuracy of the Utah time zone, the precision of the Utah time zone, let he who has failed to live down to that standard cast the first stone, right? I mean, we're all going to put our rocks away and kind of have to back off on that one.
For sure.
I mean, how many times has that just completely thrown us for a loop? All right, before we get to fake news or not, it's brought to you by our friends over at Preborn. This Christmas, as we celebrate the gift of life, you've got an opportunity to share that same gift with a mother and her baby. Imagine a young woman facing an unplanned pregnancy, feeling alone, unsure of what to do. Pretty easy to imagine this time of year. It's literally a story of Advent. She's searching for hope, and that's where Preborn Ministries come in. All right? Every mother Preborn serves faces a moment of decision when she sees her baby's ultrasound. In that sacred moment, she has the opportunity to say yes to life, to walk into the light. Preborn's mission is to help her find courage, faith, and the support to do so. This Christmas, for just $28, you can save a life. That's all one ultrasound costs. For that, it's still, with all the inflation, it's still just $28 a life for $28? I know a lot of us would pony that up, and a lot of you have. You've been so generous the last few years of this partnership. Let's keep that generosity going, because that life could go on to, who knows, change the world. And thanks to a special matching grant this time of year, your gift will be doubled as well. So again, make a tax-deductible donation today to the 5-star charity at Preborn. That's preborn.com/Steve. Again, that's preborn.com/Steve. All right, let's get to fake news or not. And there has been, and I think rightly so, a lot of conversation on our side since Charlie's murder about who can step into his void in several places. But primarily when it comes to reaching the young men. If there's two things that will be the most difficult of Charlie's legacy as somebody who knew him, that I think will be the most difficult for us to fill, it will be the level of retardation that Charlie held back by the power of his leadership, integrity, then people, frankly, that were just, to be blunt, afraid of offending him because they didn't want to alienate him and not get access to TPUSA as a platform or his show, right? You'd always prefer, any dad would, right? You'd always prefer to motivate people by positive reinforcement, correct?
Sure.
But if you're a dad for more than, say, 5 minutes, you recognize that's not always what has to work. And sometimes negative reinforcement, in fact, all too often is the way to go, right?
Correct.
So, yeah, I mean, Charlie was a positive leader, but the fear of his platform and being alienated from it also kept some people in line who otherwise might not have been. Well, now what we're seeing is that retardation is like fully unleashed. See the retort that just aired here on this show a few minutes ago, for example. And so now people that's one area we're struggling to, for that leadership, because Charlie was not a gatekeeper at the same time. I mean, he would just confront things. He would just tell you, hey, I just don't think that's what conservatism is. You want to platform that? He didn't go around telling other people to put on their shows. Just said, though, hey, we're not doing that here because, I don't think Jew hate is a conservative value, right? Another area that's vital and key of filling the void left by his loss is the reaching of the young men. There's a video that, Aaron, you discovered. I want to let you set this up with Nick Freitas. We had a chance to meet him. He was in D.C. when we were at the White House earlier this year. And he came over, introduced himself. I believe, Aaron, Virginia legislature, right? Military guy,
House of Delegates. He's a veteran. Yeah, Green Beret, I believe. And you read...
So he can beat us all up.
Yeah. And you reminded me, I forgot that we met him when we were out in Washington, D.C. He joined the Trigonometry podcast recently. That's Konstantin Kysin. I can't remember what the co-host's name is. And he was just asked point blank, what do we do with the young man? This is about a 6.5-minute clip. Really hits on a lot of themes that we've covered on the show, but does a good job of distilling it down, I believe, in about that time period. And so I think it would be interesting for us to react, because you and Todd have not seen this clip. React and try to see if this message, if this tactic strategy is the strategy to follow for reaching and hopefully shaping and being a good example for young men. Steve, you ready to go?
Ready.
Okay.
So how do young men now deal with the world that they're dealing with today, be powerful, be productive, be constructive, and make a positive impact on themselves, their families, and the world?
There's two messages here. And one is for those young men, and one is for men more our age. Because I got in a fight with my co-host, who's one of my best friends. He's 31. And I was talking about masculinity, and I was very much going for the, hey, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You got to push ahead. You got to do forward, be a man. And clicked off the camera. He goes, I'm so sick of hearing that crap. And I said, what? He goes, I'm so sick of hearing it from you. And now I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Is life just so damn hard for you? Oh, I'm sorry. Where were you at 25? Because I was sitting behind a 50 cal machine gun in Iraq. You want to bitch to me about how tough life is? Let's talk about it. And he goes, you know what, Nick? You're right. You're right. You were over there fighting a war. And you know what? They loved you for it. They loved you. You were a man. You were a warrior. You had a beautiful wife waiting at home. You had kids that couldn't wait to see you again. And he goes, I don't pretend for 1 second I know what it's like to fight a war the way you did. But you don't get to pretend that you know what it's like to be told your entire life that every single instinct you applied on that battlefield, every sort of instinct that was rewarded by a wife and a child and a grateful nation. I don't know what any of that is. That's what I'm going through. And I had to apologize because I'm going to tell you right now, war sucks. But that sucks worse. That sucks worse. And so we started really talking about that. Like, okay, what was this like? What was this like going through elementary school, middle school, high school, college? What was it like just being inundated with this? And what's interesting is we came to the conclusion at the end of it that it has to be acknowledged that young men, and specifically, let's really piss everybody off, specifically young white men.
And Christian men.
And young Christian men. You were responsible for all the world's ills, right? Everything about you is wrong. And the only thing that you have to look forward in your life is to sit down, shut up, and now do as you're told as penance for things that happened before you were ever born. That is unjust as hell. That is not just wrong on practical levels. That is one of the most destructive things you could do to the human spirit. So what do we do about it? So I would say for men my age, we need to understand that the unique trials that we went through are our unique trials. And our fathers went through different ones and our grandfathers went through different ones. But the one that they're going through is actually really, really unique. I would argue that never before in human history have we had an entire culturally shaped, like almost every single major culturally shaping institution telling young men they were crap. That's unique. And so respect what they're going through is very, very difficult in that sense. And yeah, they might have more creature comforts, they might have more technology, they might have things that appear to make life easier that we never dreamt of when we were their age. But would you trade any of that for a real sense of meaning and purpose? I sure as hell wouldn't. And so that's what they're looking for. That's what they're looking for. And they want the challenges. There's a reason why young men are going back into the church in bigger numbers that we haven't seen. The church attendance has been on the decline, especially among men, since the 70s. It has now started to reverse for the first time in close to 6 decades. Why? They're looking for meaning. They're looking for purpose. They want the truth. They want something worth fighting for. But they got to come alongside people that actually understand what they've just gone through and what they're rebelling against so that it can be moved in the right direction. The other thing I would tell young men, and this sucks, because young men are polling more conservative than they've ever been. Young women are polling more liberal than they've ever been. They did an NBC poll. They asked 4 different groups. They were all young men and women, but it was young men and women that voted for Harris, young men and women that voted for Trump. And it was 13 priorities. The number 12th priority for women that voted for Harris was having kids. It was the 9th priority for men that voted for Harris. It was the 6th priority for women that voted for Trump. It was the number 1 priority for men that voted for Trump. Having kids, having a legacy, having a family, having something to fight for. Now, the good news about this is that these men are insisting upon this regardless of what culture tells them. And thank God, because that is what has been needed this entire time. We need young men to see themselves as the leaders that we need them to be. We're all familiar with that circle of strong men create good times create weak men create hard times create good men. Hard times do not create good men. Good men are appreciated for what they do in hard times in ways that they are not during the good times. And the sucky part is for young men is the only way through this is if you choose to be the good man that the times require. That's it. If you're going to wait for anybody to reward you for it, if you're going to wait for feminism to end, I understand every single instinct that's got to be jumping out of you going, fine, you don't want the sort of men that actually make all of this work? You don't get it then. And we'll see how long you last. I understand that inclination. But I will tell you this, if we go back to that NBC poll, and we check it again in about 5 years, I promise you, the conservative women will be placing family and getting married higher up in their list of priorities. Why? Because when good men lead the way I believe that we were designed and created to do it, when we actually display the sort of attributes, the sort of honor, the sort of strength, the sort of integrity, women are attracted to it. And there's nothing that the university can ultimately do about that. There's nothing that politics can eventually do. They can fight it tooth and nail. They've created those conditions. Let's be very honest about it. They've created these conditions. But the way to fight it is to essentially ignore it and do what you know to be correct.
Nick Freitas there. Before I give any commentary, fake news or not?
Well, it's not fake news. I do think it's interesting. Ultimately, Nick says he apologized to his friend. And I think that's something you do as a friend to make sure that, hey, I am not taking you for granted. I want you to understand that I'm rooting for you. I'm not against you. I'm not pulling a generational voodoo on you. So, I mean, I appreciate that as a brother to brother. But ultimately, Nick comes right back to the beginning. And if his friend is listening, he's like, listen, I get it. I appreciate it. I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying you don't have unique challenges, but the truth is just the truth all the same. You sitting around and talking about it, sitting around being a victim, sitting around complaining about it, none of it's going to solve it. There's no way but through. And he's absolutely right about that. This is why, and we've talked about this a little bit before, and Aaron and I come down on different sides of it. I want you to show you, I'm not coming at this from a old man shakes and fists at clouds generation. I just hear way too often young men basically sounding like the boomers who write letters to Steve saying, it's not my generation. You can't get either, if you want to be an individual and rise or fall as an individual, you must rise above whatever the circumstances is of your generation. Like Nick said, that's just the ball game, and every generation has it. And here's the paradox of what's going on here. The things that they resent are still in them on a DNA level, because when you've been raised by generations of feminists, you sit around complaining and talking about things for too long. That's not what men do. It's ultimately an action game. And men are going to have to do that. And this generation of young men has been more programmed by feminism, even if they hate it and they resent it. They still have it in them that we just sit around and complain about things. So I found that very interesting. I think there's a lot of good, solid food for thought.
Aaron?
So I think overall it's not fake news. I think the jury is still out. I think this is the crux of where Todd and I have kind of disagreed a little bit. I think the jury is still out on what young men actually want versus what they say they want, what they actually want. And so I'm not totally sure if I'm tracking in terms of, hey, they want to be challenged, they want a mission, they want purpose. I think Todd probably would say, right, that you're not really seeing that out of that generation of young men. I think the jury is still out. But ultimately, I think the message is that you have to make the case to the young men. You have to make the case that the stakes are, you are the generation of heroes that saved Western civilization, or it will die on your watch.
Mm-hmm.
No more, no less. And yeah, the circumstances are different. The challenges are unique. Maybe in ways that your fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers didn't deal with. But they are challenges, unique challenges, nonetheless. And yes, it does suck. It sucked when, World War II rolled around. We hear all the stories of, hey, I'm going to go sign up, I'm going to go be a hero for the country and things like that. But nevertheless, war still sucks. Every single generation has their unique challenges to go out and face, but you have to face them nonetheless. So I think that's more of an inspiring approach, that we need you to be, despite all of this, the choice is still before you. Are you going to be a good man? And yeah, the rewards aren't going to be there. Probably not. Not this side of eternity. Probably just not going to be there the way they were for your parents' generation. But this is up to you spiritually, whether or not you want to be the sort of good man that can lead. I think that's an inspiring message. And if you're, okay, so what do we do now? I think reading your Bible, making sure you're in that, serving in your church as much as you possibly can. I can't find a good, if the response to any sort of action step is, well, I can't do this because of this, and this, then I think we'll have the answer to whether or not young men are actually interested in leading and being the hero generation. If all you get is objections to your action steps, then you'll know that it's just finally time to turn the lights out. But I'm not ready to go there yet. I don't see that quite yet. So overall, this is not fake news.
My take on it, I think, is kind of maybe similar to what the two of you just said. I do think the jury is still out on the young men. I see positive signs, but and some of that comes after no signs, you know? So any positive signs after no signs is going to look like 100% improvement. Okay. You know? So, I both don't want to dismiss the positive signs. Neither, though, do I want to smoke the Red Auerbach victory cigar already either. Okay. That all being said, regardless of how this generation of young men turn out, because you will be the determinative generation. You will decide if Western civilization dies or not, as Aaron said. You will. You will. And so you're going to decide whether your children need to know Chinese and Arabic or not, or they're going to be compelled to know it. You're going to decide that. Regardless of our level of optimism about the direction of the young men, what I can tell every young man within the sound of my voice is this. Everything that Nick says there about how to become and what to do to be the man you say you want to be is correct. It is 100% individually correct. One thing that I think most men don't understand is headship is not authority. It is responsibility. And let me tell you what I know the world says leaders get harems. I know that. I know the world says leaders get wealth, power. But the one whose image you're created in, who gave you your masculinity, that's inverted and upside down from his kingdom. Let me tell you what headship really is. That you're going to eat the crap sandwich first.
Yep.
That you're going to swallow your pride first. And you're going to do it because you love those that God has given to you and responsibility for more than you love yourself. And so everything else that Nick says to individual men, we can all sit here and debate if he's right collectively about this generation of young men. But to every young man within the sound of my voice, if you want to be the kind of man that Nick articulated there, you'll have to learn to do exactly what he said. You know, this month is all about giving, and it's been a long year, yet another unpredictable year. So give the gift of health, safety, and peace of mind that we've told you all along Jace is all about. They've got emergency medications, all in one ready-to-go cases shipped to your home, so you're in control and prepared ahead of time. You can also just get the good old-fashioned Jace case with the 5 very important, celebrated antibiotics, just in case, well, that never could happen here. Happens here to you again. You can expand it, to get the drugs that you're not supposed to have, like ivermectin, just in case you might need it, and they decide at the end they'd rather kill you than give it to you during a so-called pandemic. This is the company that's been there standing in the gap to make sure you take as much control over your healthcare as you possibly can. All right. And so here's all you need to do. Enter the promo code DACE at checkout for a discount on your order. Give the gift of health, preparedness, peace of mind with Jace this year. That's promo code DEACE at JASE.com. Promo code DACE at JACE.com for a discount on your order with the promo code DACE at JACE.com. Just received this note from Javier Santiago. Hey, can I buy Candace Christmas with my tariff rebate check or my Minnesota EBT card? I'm just asking questions. He gets us.
No, there are only 3 accepted payment options.
That's true, and they are listed on the video if you watch. Yes.
You can use your Qatar Airways privilege card. You can use the Doha Bank card or Qatar National Bank.
Correct. All, of course, finally accredited institutions with fiduciary integrity intact. Yes.
Correct.
PSC says, Anna sounds great. Thank you. Yes, that is my oldest daughter, Anastasia, on vocals there. I figured we already did the thing where I sing really badly. Let's maybe try to sing well this time.
Well, I
figured
like
everybody heard that the first time.
In both cases, there's a juxtaposition. I like when you did the classic Christmas, a solemn occasion, but your voice. And here that script is flipped. It's a totally unsolemn, unserious thing, but with something that was actually classy this time, your daughter.
Melissa says, there are rules about gauntlets that must be observed. Throw them hard, come in hot. Make the room shake when they hit. Throw them so hard that not responding is not an option. And make the challenged party look like a coward if they don't respond. I think you checked all 5 boxes. Agree or disagree?
Like I said, I meant what I said. In the annals of Hold My Beer, no one's ever done better.
Again, I don't know who the offended party is. Candace Christmas, like COVID Christmas, has a nice little alliteration to it. You do know this. You do know you've written more than a few things with me. You know I love my alliteration. Okay, you know I love it. All right.
It's just colorful Socratic dialogue.
Indeed.
That's all it is.
And you just try to figure what's a name that, just as a singular name. It couldn't go with Lois. Like we couldn't go Bing, Sinatra, Elvis, Mariah, Lois. We couldn't do Lois, right? So what kind of has a ring to it that segues right there after Mariah? We just, Aaron and I put our heads together, and right now Aaron's like, no, you put your own head together and wrote this yourself.
I just want to state for the record, no, you put your own head together for the record. You wrote this yourself.
Exactly. Yes. And I just thought Candace had a ring to it, All right, Pop Culture Tuesday. There's a big story going on right now, and this story is going to carry well over into the new year. And it has the potential to change the way we have consumed IPs and original content for the rest of our lives, frankly. But at the very least, it is a microcosm of where we are politically. And one of the reasons why we are struggling to turn out our voters without a Trump level figure, and to a lesser degree, a DeSantis level figure at the top of a ballot in many places. So there's a fight over what is really the most famous studio in Hollywood history. Of all the original studios, Warner's is the one that has stood the test of time. And many of the greatest franchises in the history of cinema belong to Warner Brothers. They are, in many respects, in this case, Warner Brothers is kind of a stand-in for the country. If you follow the word picture here on a Pop Culture Tuesday, where we look at what's trending in pop culture and how it intersects with what we're attempting to conserve. So follow my word picture here. Warner Brothers, in many respects, is the stand-in for America. It has its flaws. It has its warts. It has its red light district in Hollywood, Babylon. Okay. It also has a tremendous amount of achievements. You could take the cinematic library of Warner Brothers and put it up against, at the very least, if we said cinematic catalogs, Warner Brothers and Disney versus The Field, most people would probably say, I'll take Warner Brother and Disney then. All right.
Yeah.
At the very least, it's on par with that. And so it's trying to reinvent itself. It tried to do it, and it was successful, and it was good. Not as good as they hoped, not as successful as they hoped. But people who are telling you that the latest Superman movie didn't make money, I have to just tell you, they don't understand how movies are made and how movies make money. All right. If you just look at what the movie cost and take the split of what theaters get and what's left over, yeah, it looks like Superman didn't make money, but there's licensing, merchandising. Superman wasn't paying Dairy Queen Dairy Queen was paying Warner Brothers. Superman's a bigger logo than Dairy Queen. So when you look at all the merchandising, we look at the streaming, it's the most viewed streamed movie of the year. There's a reason why there are reports out now that it made the studio about $100 million. If you just look at the box office, you're right. Even though it's going to be a top 5 movie this year, it did not make money. But if you look at all the merchandising and everything else that goes along with it, it was a massive financial success for Warner Brothers. More importantly, people didn't hate it. They didn't necessarily think it was great, but they didn't hate it. And after the Zack Snyder era, that's a big win. They just had to start getting on base. They had to make people like these characters not called Batman again. So Warner Brothers here is kind of the stand-in for America. It has its flaws, it has its warts, it has its embarrassments, but it also has a tremendous legacy of success. And is with brands like The Godfather and others that are kind of woven into the fabric of Americana. Fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Vying for control of Warner Brothers now, we have two sides. On the left, the way left, we have Netflix. Couple things I can tell you about Netflix, because I have some personal experience. 2 years ago, I had some devout Catholic movie producers come to me seeking a consult on what to do with their film and distribution. They had made, it was already in the can, they had made a family-friendly film with a huge star. And Netflix came to them and wanted to make it an exclusive before they put it in theaters, which most filmmakers are going to say yes to, because there's a chance that your movie may pop when it gets to theaters and you're leaving tens of millions of dollars on the table, right? Okay. But that's an opportunity cost you don't know. It's a little bit like if you won the lottery, would you take it all in one lump sum or monthly payments? All right. The lump sum's going to come with a massive tax bill right up the top, right? On the other hand, if you take it in monthly payments, you might get hit by a car next month and not realize much of the money that you think you won, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So most filmmakers nowadays would, particularly independent filmmakers, would prefer one of the major streaming platforms, just buy their film from them and put it on, because it's a guaranteed revenue source rather than sweating out what the box office says, which again, you can strike it gold. You can be the next Sound of Freedom. You can be the next Sound of Freedom, but the odds are you probably won't be. And you'd rather just make your money back. See what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. And make a profit. So Netflix came to them wanting their movie with one catch and made them a decent offer. There was one catch. They had to go into reshoots and change one of the children in the movie, had to be changed to homo or tranny. So, yeah. I have some other personal experience with Netflix. The editor of my film, Brian Jeremiah Smith. We only got him because Netflix put him on paid leave. He was the one editor at Netflix who refused to take the poisonous jab. They had intended to fire him, but then the Supreme Court overturned the Biden mandate, and now Netflix wasn't sure what to do. They took him off their big budget production of The House of Usher. They took him off that production. They punished him. They took him off of it and just put him on indefinite paid leave because now they couldn't fire him, but they also didn't want to reward him for standing up to them. That's the only way we got him. There's no way we could have gotten an editor of his magnitude with the budget we had, except for what Netflix tried to do to him. On the board of Netflix is Susan Rice, just an infamous Obama-ista proven liar. Just an insipid Obama-ista. They've made development deals with the Obamas. They just cast a 75-year-old woman as Christ, Meryl Streep as Aslan in their remakes of the C.S. Lewis Narnia classics. I think I saw a post from Posobiec today. They just did a movie about trainee coal miners, or some coal miners not sure what gender they are or something. Okay. And there's all the discussion about how essentially I've not seen the final season of Stranger Things yet, but there's all kinds of talk out there that the final season, it just is revealed the whole thing was a bait and switch. The whole thing was basically just be gay. Everything was just a story device just to promote homoism. All right, so Netflix is today's Democratic Party, right? So Warner Brothers is America. There's life in the old lady, but that light is a flickering, all right? It's got a great legacy. It's got a name. So people, there's still value in controlling that as a platform, right? It's got a library of greatness. See where I'm going with this, right? All right, so you've got these two parties vying for this now. Netflix, what I just described, complete conduit of the spirit of the age. That's today's Democratic Party. On the right, you have Paramount. So Paramount will make Gay Trek and kill that franchise. But then they'll also give Tom Cruise $200 million to make, Maverick and a jingoistic film right out of the 80s that most other studios didn't want to touch. They're owned, as Aaron told you in his montage, they're owned by the Ellisons. Larry Ellison of Oracle's son actually owns them. But they're within the Ellison family empire. And the Ellisons have made it known that more movies need to be made that people actually want to see. Okay? On the other hand, what is Larry Ellison the biggest promoter of, or one of the biggest promoters of in the world at this point? AI. Yeah. Didn't we have a clip of Larry Ellison last year about AI? Or was it earlier this year, Aaron? AI is basically to just tell you how to live your life and how to think.
Yeah,
and
it was earlier this year.
And you're going to like that. Okay? You're going to like that,
Basically promoting a Minority Report.
Yeah, he didn't quite go Yuval Harari. Like, Harari is clearly doing it malevolently. He wants you to know when he speaks, it's with a forked tongue. Ellison is just simping for he's just a technocrat. But the end result might be the same between Ellison and Yuval Harari, to be honest with you, but their motivations aren't the same. The Ellisons are much closer with Trump. They've done a lot of business with Trump. They're in business with him now on multiple fronts, with Oracle and also on AI. And there's a lot of reports out there that the Trump administration would prefer that the Ellisons own Warner Brothers because, again, they'd like to see movies that are pro-America, that Americans want to see. So to me, the Paramount is the Republican Party. Just enough spirit of the age to be dangerous. Not flat out Marxist and communist. Not like hostile to us, but like not necessarily with us, if that makes sense. Okay. Like, what do you mean you don't want a data center in every town? That can just be the new factories where everybody works, kind of a thing. You know what I'm saying? You guys didn't mind, when there was, smokestacks from the steel plant or the coal mine 50 years ago, or people came home with a carpal tunnel from working in the textile mill. What's the difference for just sitting in there, in a cubicle at a data center? Why is that job any different than the textile mill, the assembly line, or being a coal miner or a steel worker? And to me, this whole story is a microcosm of America. Warner Brothers is America. Paramount, Ellisons are the Republican Party. They're not against us, but they're really not with us, if we're being honest. Okay? And sure, they'd probably be better than Netflix owning Warner Brothers, but then you're also giving the people who think AI ought to run the world like a complete monopoly on information and entertainment distribution in the Western Hemisphere. Okay? Am I onto something with this? Because this seems to me like a total microcosm of why we struggle to get people to vote if Trump isn't on the ballot. So you want me to go vote for John Curtis to save America, who told me yesterday that if I don't get up every morning wondering what I do best for foreigners, then I hate my country? That's my option. John Curtis or, replacement theory. And if you don't want to end yourself, we'll end you for you. That's the voting choice I have, right? That's kind of the choice you have right now. You'll get some more American films with Gay Trek. All right. Where on the other beat, you'll get nothing you'll like whatsoever and complete spirit of the age desecration. Did my analogy hold?
Well, if your analogy is we're entertaining ourselves to death and there are no good options, and thus I hope this all burns to the ground, but I don't think that's probably what it was. But that's my read of the situation. This is ridiculous. Even when we were making good films, entertaining ourselves to death and not being grown-ups is how we got to this place. There's no option you presented that is healing in any way, shape, or form. I kind of respect Netflix. They know how to smash an idol. We don't. I mean, their idol happens to be the good, the true, and the beautiful, but they keep at it. We just want to numb ourselves to death and not do the things that make sure Netflix can never do this. So I'm actually kind of rooting that they win in this thing and it wakes some people up. I don't know what else to do about it. Like I've said, when we were making great movies, it didn't inspire us. Why do we want just a couple good movies? What do we want?
Oh, I left out another part too. Even part of the Oracle deal, just like some aspects of the Republican Party, is cutting deals with Arab interest and Muslim investment. That's part of the deal too.
What are we rooting for? What do we want? Why do we need this?
I don't know. That's why I find this entire thing fascinating. Beyond your love of cracking on the idolatry, to me, I just thought it was a metaphor for what it's like to be a voter in America.
Love. We're Christians. That's the game.
Aaron, real quick, I want to get to you before we get out.
This all sucks, and I'm a Luddite.
Love it.
All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Back at it again tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV. Until then, go hard. Romans 8:28.